Jimin stopped talking to Jungkook after hearing this. Fans are heartbroken, broken heart sparkles, tell me you didn't know, Jimin whispered, voice trembling as the backstage hallway lights flickered above them like faulty stars. Jungkook froze. Sweat slid down his temple, not from the concert they just finished, but from the sheer force of Jimin's stare, sharp enough to cut through the roar of cheering fans still echoing from the arena behind them. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. It was as if the air itself refused to carry his words. Jimin stepped back, the heel of his boot scraping the floor. The sound was tiny, but in that narrow corridor thick with tension, it cracked like a gunshot. The moment smelled of warm wires, hairspray, and something metallic, fear, maybe. A cold current ran through Jimin's hands as he clenched them behind his back, trying to steady himself. His breath came out unsteady, not from overexertion but from betrayal blooming hot and cruel in his chest. Jungkook finally whispered, "Hyung, I didn't think you'd find out like this." Jimin laughed, soft, breathless, bitter. "Find out? You think this is about the finding out?" His voice wasn't loud, but it vibrated with something darker than anger. His words trembled the way a blade does before it strikes. A manager passed briefly at the end of the hall, then froze, sensing the weight of something too private, too raw, and quietly retreated. The world shrank back down to the two of them, as if time held its breath to watch. Jungkook took a step closer. Jimin stepped one back. "You should have told me," Jimin said. "You should have said something. Anything. I'm not someone you keep in the dark like this. I was trying to protect you. By lying. That's not." Jungkook swallowed hard. His throat felt tight, as if his own voice was rebelling against him. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you yet." Jimin's eyes flickered, hurt, disappointment, something older and deeper than those two simple wounds. Something rooted in years of trust built backstage, in practice rooms, in cramped studios at 3 a.m. when exhaustion made them honest and vulnerable and unfiltered. "Jungkook," Jimin said, voice low, "you hid something from me that you knew would tear everything apart." The hallway felt colder. A draft ran through, brushing the edges of their outfits and raising goosebumps along Jungkook's arms. He suddenly felt small in front of Jimin, not because Jimin was angry, but because he looked wounded. "What did you hear exactly?" Jungkook asked softly, though he already feared the answer. Jimin's jaw tightened so hard it trembled. Enough. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to because earlier, just minutes before he confronted Jungkook, Jimin had overheard two staff whispering urgently in the dressing room. Fragments of sentences. A name. Jungkook's name. His own name. A decision that had been made without him, one that involved him more than anyone, yet he had been the last to know. It wasn't just the content of the conversation. It was the shock of being excluded. Jimin had always thought Jungkook would come to him first, no matter how complicated the truth was. That belief had been the foundation of their trust, simple, unspoken, solid. Now that foundation felt cracked. "I need space," Jimin said, voice strained. "I can't even look at you right now." Jungkook's breath hitched as if he'd been punched. "Hyung, don't," Jimin said quickly, closing his eyes. "If you say my name right now, I swear I won't be able to walk away." He didn't wait for an answer. He moved past Jungkook, brushing his shoulder, a ghost of a touch, but enough to send a sharp ache through Jungkook's chest. The corridor smelled abruptly of Jimin's cologne and cold air, then of nothing at all as Jimin walked away without looking back. For the first time in years, Jungkook felt small. Not the stage fright kind of small. Not the overwhelmed by fans kind. But the kind you feel when someone who mattered more than words suddenly closes the door on you. He stood frozen in the hallway, the distant cheers of the crowd dissolving into a dull roar, like waves hitting an empty shore. He wanted to chase after Jimin. Explain. Apologize. Beg, if he had to. But he knew Jimin wasn't ready. And the truth, the thing Jimin had heard, the thing Jungkook had tried desperately to delay telling him, hung above them both like a shadow waiting for its moment to strike. The kind of truth that could break more than trust if handled wrong. Jungkook leaned against the cold wall, sliding down until he sat on the floor, his hands covering his face. He had never felt more alone. The door slammed behind them with a metallic thud, echoing through the dim rehearsal room like a warning neither of them wanted to hear. Jimin didn't mean to walk this fast, nor did Jungkook mean to follow so closely, but the tension between them had grown so tight it felt like a wire ready to snap. The room was half-lit, abandoned except for a single flickering stage lamp and the smell of old wood and sweat soaked into the floors from past practices. It was the one room backstage no one used anymore, the perfect place for the conversation Jungkook clearly wasn't letting him run from. Jungkook closed the door slowly and leaned against it, chest rising and falling with unsteady breaths. "Why did you leave like that?" he demanded quietly. "You just walked off. No word. No look. Nothing." Jimin kept his back to him, gripping the collar of Jungkook's jacket that still hung around his shoulders. The fabric was warm. Too warm. He wanted to remove it, but doing so felt like removing the only shield he had left. "Because you said something you shouldn't have," Jimin murmured. "What exactly did I say that was wrong?" "That you need me to be okay because you don't know what'll happen to you. It's the truth. And that's why you shouldn't have said it." Silence thickened around them like smoke. Jungkook pushed off the door, slowly moving toward him. "Hyung," he said, voice softer now. "Don't run from this." Jimin finally turned, and when he did, Jungkook stopped walking. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, neither spoke, the air charged with something that felt dangerous, not physically, but emotionally, like stepping past a boundary they had kept intact for years. Jimin swallowed hard. "You're making this complicated." "You're the one making it complicated. I'm trying to protect us." "From what?" Jungkook's voice cracked, frustration bleeding through. "From feelings? From honesty? From me?" Jimin flinched. Jungkook noticed a flash of hurt crossed his face, quickly replaced by anger he tried and failed to contain. "Why do you look scared of me?" he asked quietly. "I'm not scared of you," Jimin whispered. "Then what is it? Tell me." Jimin opened his mouth, but the words refused to come out. How was he supposed to tell Jungkook the real reason? That every time Jungkook touched him, every time he looked at him with those unbearably sincere eyes, Jimin felt the ground beneath him tilting, threatening to swallow him whole. Jungkook stepped closer, and Jimin didn't move away. "Hyung," Jungkook said, voice trembling. "I know you think I'm just being emotional because you almost fainted. But that's not it. I meant every word." Jimin shut his eyes, but Jungkook continued, each word landing like a blow. "I meant it backstage. I meant it on stage. I meant it months ago when you kept pushing through pain and I pretended not to see it because I didn't know what else to do, because you wouldn't let me in." "Jungkook," Jimin breathed, barely audible. "No. You don't get to brush this off again." Jungkook reached out, gripping Jimin's wrist, not hard, but firm enough to anchor him. "Let me carry some of what you're holding," he whispered. "I'm not asking you to confess anything. But don't shut me out anymore. I can't," he exhaled shakily. "I can't keep watching you break yourself." Jimin opened his eyes, and Jungkook froze at what he saw there. Fear. Not of him, of himself. "Jungkook. I don't trust myself around you," Jimin whispered, voice cracking. "That's the truth." Jungkook blinked, completely thrown. "What does that mean?" "It means," Jimin looked down, chest heaving. "It means you make me feel things I don't know how to control." His confession hung in the air, heavy and fragile. Jungkook's grip on his wrist loosened, fingers trembling. "Say that again," he whispered, hardly breathing. Jimin shook his head. "I shouldn't have said anything." "No." Jungkook's voice dropped lower, almost desperate. "Don't take it back. Not this. Not when He cut himself off, jaw tensed. Jimin's eyes snapped up. "When you what?" Jungkook stared at him, torn between restraint and revelation, the kind of look someone gives when standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that one more step might change everything forever. "Hyung," he said slowly, "I need to be careful with what I say next." "Why?" Jimin whispered. "Because once I say it, I can't undo it." The room felt unbearably still. Jimin took a step closer. His voice broke when he spoke. "Then be honest. For once, just be honest." The last piece of Jungkook's restraint snapped. He cupped Jimin's face with both hands, not pulling him closer, but holding him still, forcing him to see the truth in his eyes. "I'm terrified of losing you," he whispered. "Not as a teammate. Not as a friend. As you. As the person who," his breath caught. "As the person I can't stop thinking about." Jimin's heart slammed against his ribs. Jungkook wasn't finished. "When you collapse, I feel like I can't breathe. When you smile, I feel like I'm losing control. When you're hurting and you pretend you're fine, it makes me want to shake you until you tell me everything." Jimin's lips parted, but no sound came out, and when you walk away from me, Jungkook whispered, it feels like my whole world tilts. Jimin trembled under his touch. Jungkook, he didn't know if Jungkook wanted comfort, answers, or a denial. He wasn't even sure what he wanted himself, but before he could speak again, a sudden sound echoed outside the door, footsteps rushing past, voices raised. Someone yelling urgently into a radio. Both of them froze. Jungkook's hands dropped from Jimin's face as his expression shifted from raw vulnerability to sharp alertness. Security's looking for someone, Jungkook said under his breath. They said earlier someone suspicious got inside. If they're running now, Jimin felt his stomach tighten. What if the person you saw earlier wasn't just some staff member? He whispered. Jungkook moved toward the door, pressing his ear against it. Hyung, he said quietly, stay behind me again. Just in case. Jimin grabbed his hand before he touched the handle. Jungkook, he said, voice shaking for a completely different reason now, don't open it yet. Their fingers tangled, unintentionally but irreversibly, and everything, fear, confession, danger, desire, blurred into one impossible moment neither of them could step away from. The footsteps outside grew louder. Someone pounded on a door nearby. Someone shouted a warning. The world outside was shifting into chaos, but inside the room, only one truth mattered. Jungkook squeezed Jimin's hand, eyes dark, voice a low promise. I'm not letting anything hurt you. Not tonight. Not ever. Jimin held on tighter because for the first time in years, he believed him. The practice room was almost too quiet. It was nearly 2 a.m., the kind of hour where everything feels rawer than it should. The mirrors reflected the dim ceiling lights, turning the room into a glowing box of tension. Jimin sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, hoodie loose, hair messy, eyes fixed on nothing. He'd told Jungkook he needed time. He didn't expect time to feel like a weight on his ribcage. The door creaked open. Jimin didn't look up, but his heart reacted before his mind did. Hyung? Jungkook's voice was soft, careful, but not hesitant anymore. You didn't knock, Jimin murmured. You told me not to disappear, Jungkook replied. Jimin bit his lip. I didn't think you'd take it literally. You looked scared when you said it. Jimin finally looked up. Jungkook stood by the door, hoodie half-zipped, hair damp from a late shower, a bottled water in one hand. He looked calmer than before, but his eyes, those gave him away. They carried hours of unsaid words. Jimin exhaled slowly. Did you follow me here? Yes. You're shameless. Only with you. A flicker of something, annoyance, affection, confusion, crossed Jimin's face. Sit down, he said. Jungkook did, leaving a careful gap between them. Not too close. Not too far. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then Jungkook broke the silence. Hyung, are you still angry? Yes. And hurt? Obviously. And do you hate me? Jimin's head snapped toward him, eyes sharp. If I hated you, you wouldn't be here. Jungkook's shoulders eased slightly. Then talk to me. Properly this time. Jimin stared at the floor, fingers twitching in his lap. I'm trying. I know, Jungkook murmured. And I'm not pushing. Take your pace. I'll match it. Jimin let out a breathy, humorless laugh. You always say things like that. Because I mean them. Jimin finally turned to study him, really study him. There was something different about Jungkook tonight. Something steadier, more grounded. Almost determined. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Jimin asked again, but this time his voice wasn't sharp. It was weary. Vulnerable. Jungkook hesitated. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because the truth felt heavier than guilt. You really want the real reason? He asked obviously. Jungkook swallowed hard. Because I was afraid you'd say no. Jimin blinked. What? I was scared, Jungkook continued, voice tightening. Scared that you wouldn't want to do the project. Scared you'd think it was some pity opportunity. Scared you'd push me away before I could even ask you. Scared I'd lose you before anything started. Jimin stared, stunned. Why would you think that? Because lately, Jungkook said, you've been doubting yourself more than usual. You've been shrinking. You've been smiling less. And I didn't want you to think the offer was about saving you. It wasn't. It was because I wanted you. I wanted us. The confession landed with a weight that made Jimin's breath hitch. You should have trusted me with that, Jimin said quietly. I know. Jungkook's voice cracked at the edges. But trusting you wasn't the problem. Trusting myself was. That admission knocked the air out of both of them. Silence settled again, thick and uncomfortable, until Jimin whispered, I thought you were leaving me behind. Jungkook's eyes widened. Hyung, everyone keeps saying you're rising fast. That you could go global solo. That you don't need anyone, not even me. And I tried to ignore it. But when I heard those stuff, it felt like confirmation. Jungkook moved closer, just a little. I hate that you think that way. I can't help it. You should, Jungkook said, voice suddenly fierce. Because I've never once thought of walking in a direction where you weren't beside me. Jimin looked away, throat tightening painfully. Jungkook leaned forward, elbows on his knees, fingers locked together. Tell me what exactly hurt the most. Jimin exhaled slowly. The fact that you protected me from something I didn't ask to be protected from. I know. And the fact that they talked about me like I was optional. You're not optional to me. To them, maybe I am. Jungkook's jaw tensed. They don't get to decide our worth. You let them silence me. That hit Jungkook harder than anything else. He reached out instinctively, then stopped, hand hovering in midair. Waiting. Asking without words. Jimin didn't move away, so Jungkook gently took Jimin's hand, their fingers touching hesitantly at first, then settling into a familiar interlaced hold. Neither of them fought. Tell me, Jungkook whispered. Tell me everything you've been holding in. Even if it hurts me. Jimin looked down at their hands, the warmth, the tension, the history engraved into every inch. I felt small, Jimin confessed. Like I was a shadow following you. Like you're outgrowing me. Jungkook squeezed his hand. I'm growing because of you, not away from you. Jimin's eyes flickered with emotion. And I didn't tell you sooner, Jungkook added softly, because I wanted the first time you heard about the project to be a moment you'd smile at. Not break from. Well, Jimin muttered dryly, that went well. Jungkook actually laughed, shaky and tired but genuine. Yeah, badly executed plan. Disastrous, Jimin corrected. Their eyes met. Something warm flickered between them, the fragile beginning of forgiveness, maybe. But the room wasn't done with them yet. A sudden knock shattered the moment. Both froze. The door opened before either could respond. A manager stepped in, startled to see them both on the floor. His eyes widened. Oh, thank God. I've been looking everywhere. We need to talk. Now. Jimin stiffened. Jungkook's expression darkened instantly. The manager shut the door behind him. There's something you both need to know, he said breathlessly. And you're not going to like it. Jimin's stomach dropped, Jungkook straightened, hand still holding Jimin's tightly as if anchoring him. What now? Jungkook asked, voice dangerously calm. The manager hesitated, swallowing nervously. The leaked conversation you overheard earlier, that wasn't the whole story. Jimin tensed. What do you mean? It wasn't just about the project, the manager whispered. There's another layer to it. A bigger one. A decision the higher-ups have been discussing privately. Jungkook's grip on Jimin tightened until their knuckles almost touched. What decision? Jimin asked softly, his voice sharp around the edges. The manager looked between them, guilt flickering in his expression. They're considering separating your branding. Splitting your activities. Permanently. Jimin's breath caught. Jungkook shot to his feet so fast the water bottle tipped over. They want to break us up? Jungkook snapped. Jimin's heart dropped so hard it hurt, the manager winced. It's not finalized. But the discussion started weeks ago. Without either of you knowing. Jungkook swore under his breath, running a hand through his hair, pacing once before stopping abruptly. Jimin stood slowly, his legs numb. So everything I heard, Jimin whispered, voice cracking, was only the surface, the manager confirmed. Jimin swayed slightly. Jungkook caught him instantly, one hand gripping his arm, the other bracing his waist. Hyung, Jungkook murmured, voice trembling now, look at me. Jimin did. Jungkook's expression was raw, fierce, terrified. I'm not letting them do that. I don't care who they are. They don't get to take you away from me. Jimin swallowed hard, emotions swirling too violently to name. For the first time tonight, he didn't feel angry. He felt scared, really, truly scared, and Jungkook was holding him like he'd fight the world to keep him from breaking. The air in the meeting room felt like a storm trapped in glass. Jungkook had dragged Jimin there the second the manager finished speaking. Not gently, urgently, like every second lost meant another piece of Jimin slipping away. Jimin followed in silence, heart pounding so loudly he felt it in his fingertips. Inside, the lights were dim, only one lamp illuminating the long conference table. Papers were scattered, laptops left open, a jacket slung over a chair as if someone had vacated the room in a hurry. The room smelled like cold coffee, stale stress, and secrets. Jungkook slammed the door behind them. Jimin flinched slightly. Sorry, Jungkook muttered, jaw tight. I'm just angry, Jimin finished softly. Angry doesn't even touch it. Jungkook paced like a caged tiger, muscles tight, hands shaking with a mix of fury and fear. Jimin watched him, torn between exhaustion and a growing fire in his own chest. Sit, Jimin said quietly. No, Jungkook snapped. Jungkook, I can't sit right now, Jungkook said, voice rising. I can't pretend this is normal. They were going to separate us, Hyung. As if we're just pieces on a board they can slide around. Jimin pressed his lips together. We don't know the details yet. We know enough, Jungkook hissed. Enough to know they didn't tell us. Enough to know they didn't trust us. Enough to know they tried to play us against each other. Jimin looked down at the table, his reflection faint in the glossy surface. You think they'd really go through with it, he whispered. Jungkook stopped pacing and turned to him, eyes burning. They already started. Jimin's breath trembled. Look at the timing, Jungkook continued, stepping closer. The secret project. The private meetings. The way they talked about you earlier. How they made it sound like I'd be better off alone. Jimin swallowed hard. Maybe they just, no, Jungkook cut in sharply. Don't defend them. Not today. Jimin looked up slowly. Jungkook's anger wasn't cold and distant, it was hot, protective, feral. Directed not at Jimin, but for him, and that made Jimin's chest ache in a way he wasn't ready to unpack. Tell me what you're thinking, Jungkook demanded. Jimin hesitated. I'm scared. Jungkook's expression softened instantly. His movements slowed. He approached Jimin like he was approaching something fragile, not because Jimin was fragile, but because what they shared was Hyung, Jungkook whispered, kneeling in front of him, don't be scared alone. Not with me. Jimin exhaled shakily, his voice barely audible. What if they really decide we're better apart? Then I'll fight them. You can't fight the company. I don't care. They could bury you. Then I'll drag you with me. Jimin blinked, startled. Jungkook. I'm serious, Jungkook said, gripping Jimin's hands. If they want to split us up, they'll have to do it over my dead body. That's dramatic. That's accurate. Jimin tried to laugh, but it came out more like a choked breath. Jungkook squeezed his hands tighter. I'm not letting them touch us, Jungkook said fiercely. Not our bond. Not what we built. Not what we are. A quiet knock interrupted the moment. The door opened before either could react. Two senior staff members entered, the head of creative, and the executive manager directly overseeing their upcoming schedule. Their faces carried exhaustion, guilt, and something else Jimin couldn't quite read. Jimin. Jungkook. The executive exhaled heavily. I figured we'd find you here. Jungkook shot to his feet instantly, pulling Jimin up beside him as if shielding him. Is it true? Jungkook spat. Say it to our faces. The executive didn't answer immediately. Say it. Jungkook snapped, voice low and dangerous. The creative head sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. We had internal discussions, yes. Jungkook's fists tightened so hard his knuckles went white. Jimin's stomach twisted. About splitting us permanently? Not permanently, the creative head said quickly. Nothing final. Just possibilities. Potential strategies. Behind our backs, Jungkook said, breath shaking. Without even consulting us. The executive looked pained. We didn't want to alarm you until there was a clear decision. Well, Jungkook said, taking a step forward, you succeeded. I'm definitely not alarmed. I'm furious. Jimin placed a hand on his arm gently, grounding him. The executive continued carefully, listen. There's been pressure from higher up. Market data. Future planning. Some teams suggested differentiating your identities to expand opportunities. At the cost of ours. Jimin whispered. Silence. Jungkook's voice dropped to a growl. Unacceptable. Jungkook, no, he snapped. Stop talking like this is normal. Stop acting like we don't deserve to know. You messed up. You didn't trust us. And you almost broke us. The creative head looked genuinely shaken. We didn't realize the impact. Well, realize it now, Jungkook shot back. The executive exhaled. You're right. We should have included you. We apologize. Jungkook didn't soften. Fix it. Both staff looked at him, surprised. Fix, Jungkook repeated slowly, whatever decision you were making. Because Jimin and I are not being separated. You will not divide our image. Our schedules. Our branding. Our music. We're staying together. You're going to respect that. The creative head hesitated. That's not entirely up to us. Then make it up to whoever it belongs to, Jungkook said. Because we're not agreeing to anything else. Jimin felt something shift inside him, a mix of awe and shock. He'd never seen Jungkook like this. Controlled but blazing. Angry but articulate. Protecting him like it was instinct. The executive nodded slowly. We'll report your stance. And we'll stop all discussions until further notice. Good, Jungkook said coldly. The staff turned to leave, but Jimin's voice stopped them. Wait. They paused. Jimin's voice was soft but steady. If you're making decisions about me, include me next time. Don't whisper about me like I'm a weight. Or an afterthought. Both looked genuinely remorseful. You're not an afterthought, Jimin, the executive said gently. Not ever. Jimin didn't look convinced. The door closed behind them. Silence enveloped the room again, thicker than ever. Jungkook let out a long, shaky breath. Hyung, Jimin looked at him with eyes full of things he'd never said before, gratitude, guilt, awe, fear, affection that burned through the spaces between them. You didn't have to defend me like that, Jimin whispered. Yes, I did. You shouldn't fight everyone for me. I'll fight anyone for you. And if you lose, then I'll lose next to you. Jimin's breath caught. Something intense, bright, and terrifying flickered between them. Not anger, not fear, something deeper, older, undeniable. Jungkook, Jimin whispered, voice cracking. Why are you doing all this? Jungkook stepped closer slowly, deliberately, until there was barely an inch between them. His voice dropped to a low, devastating whisper. Because you're the person I can't afford to lose. Jimin's heart caught fire. Jungkook didn't touch him. Didn't kiss him. Didn't cross any line. He just stood there, breathing the same air, close enough that the truth in his eyes was impossible to ignore. Jimin felt something he'd been avoiding all night, something he wasn't ready to admit, not yet, but it lived between them now, undeniable and burning, and neither of them stepped away. The storm outside had finally broken into a thin silver rain, the kind that whispered against the windows instead of clawing at them. Inside the dim rehearsal studio, only the emergency lights glowed, soft and amber, stretching the shadows long across the polished floor. Jimin stood in the center of the room, chest rising and falling, fingers trembling as if the echo of the last argument was still vibrating through his bones. He didn't hear Jungkook enter. He only sensed the shift in the air, heavy, hesitant, but unmistakably him. The door clicked shut behind him, the softest sound, yet it hit Jimin like a gunshot. I thought you weren't coming, Jimin murmured without turning around. Jungkook stayed quiet for a breath that felt like a lifetime. I wasn't, he answered, voice low, ragged. But you said you wanted the truth. And I'm done running from it. Jimin finally turned. His eyes were still red from the last fight, the one that had ripped them both open. Then talk. For once, just talk to me without hiding behind silence or half-answers. Jungkook stepped closer, almost too close, the space between them charged with the same spark that had fueled their worst arguments and their best moments. You want honesty? Fine. I was scared, Jimin. Scared that if I said the wrong thing, I'd lose you. And the stupid thing is, staying silent almost lost you anyway. Jimin let out a harsh, shaky laugh. You think I haven't been scared? You think hearing rumors about you, about us, about that leaked recording didn't rip me apart? You think I don't lie awake wondering why you wouldn't trust me with the truth first? A beat passed. Jungkook's voice dropped, thick with guilt. I didn't tell you because the recording wasn't the worst part. What I said, what I confessed that night, it wasn't about the label, or the fights, or the pressure. Jimin swallowed hard. Then what? Jungkook reached out but stopped his hand just before touching Jimin's cheek, as if waiting for permission. His words came out in a whisper. It was about you. It's always been about you. Jimin's breath hitched, the walls around him cracking a little with each syllable. I said I cared about you too much, Jungkook continued. More than I should. More than they would ever accept. And I was terrified that if that leaked, if people twisted it, your life, your career, everything you worked for, would crumble. Jimin closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the confession like a blow straight to the chest. So instead of trusting me, you made the decision alone. Again. Jungkook's jaw clenched. Because I thought protecting you meant keeping distance. But I'm done pretending I can breathe without you around. I'm done pretending silence keeps you safe. Jimin stepped closer, close enough that their foreheads almost touched, their breaths mingling and trembling between them. You hurt me, he whispered. Badly. I know. Jungkook's voice cracked. And I'll spend whatever time you'll give me making it right. The rain outside softened further until it sounded like a lullaby. Jimin lifted his hand and placed it on Jungkook's chest, feeling the frantic pulse beneath. Jungkook sighed like he'd been holding his breath for months. I don't want perfect, Jimin said. I just want truth. Even if it breaks something. Even if it scares us. Jungkook nodded slowly. Then here's the last piece of it. He took Jimin's hand gently, threading their fingers together. If losing everything is the price of choosing you, I'll pay it, Jimin. Every time. The world seemed to tilt for a moment, quiet, suspended, on the edge of something fragile and magnificent. Jimin let out a broken breath. You idiot, he murmured, though his voice softened like velvet. You could have just told me. Jungkook finally allowed himself a small, shaky smile, the first real one in what felt like ages. Yeah. I know. I'm learning. Jimin stepped into him fully this time, resting his forehead against Jungkook's. His voice was barely audible. If you want this, whatever this has been trying to become, then we face it together. No more running. No more silence. Together, Jungkook echoed, like a vow. The air shifted, relief, vulnerability, the electric hum of something finally unstuck. Jungkook cupped Jimin's face gently, reverently, as though he'd been waiting a lifetime just to touch him without fear. Jimin didn't pull away. In fact, he leaned into it, eyes fluttering shut as if the tension of the past months was finally dissolving under Jungkook's touch. Outside, the rain faded into a pale, hopeful dawn. Inside, they stood there in the half-light, not as idols pulled apart by secrets and pressure, but as two people who had finally stopped hiding from each other, and from themselves. Jimin spoke first, barely louder than a breath but certain. Let's go back to them. All of them. As us. However messy, however confusing, let's just be honest. Jungkook nodded, eyes soft, voice full. Yeah. Let's walk out of here together. And they did, hands intertwined, steps in sync, hearts unshielded at last. For the first time in what felt like forever, the world didn't feel like something they had to survive. It felt like something they could choose, together. The door closed behind them, and the story that had almost broken them quietly transformed into the one that would finally save them.